Hello and welcome to a very special video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Sarah and I make junk journals and love all things paper and crafts, and really anything to do with arts and crafts is my passion, my happy space. So a few videos ago, I mentioned that while visiting my grandmom one Sunday earlier this year, I brought a junk journal that I made to show her so that she could see what I've been doing with the sewing machine she got me for Christmas last year. And the cover of that journal was like a boho style patchwork fabric, very badly sewn. Like I'm not the type of person who enjoys following directions and measuring things perfectly or doing anything with calculated precision. I'm more of a sloppy crafter. So junk journals are really my absolute favorite form of craft at the moment. Maybe they will be forever, but for at least, for at least the past year, I have been borderline obsessed with watching other crafters do junk journal flip-throughs on YouTube. I love crafters like Amity Bloom comes to mind, Mrs. Cog. I mean, I'll make another video, maybe just with a list of all my favorite junk journal makers so you can see who else I enjoy watching. But anyway, yeah, in showing my grandmom that junk journal, she told me about books her mother had made, and I'm going to share those with you today. I've mentioned these in other videos and was really pleased to hear from some of you that you'd like to see these books. So here they are. I'll start with this one because this one I know the most about. This was a book that my great-grandmother, who passed away before I was born, so sadly I never had the chance to meet her, but everyone loved her. I hear only good things in the collective memories of my mom and my aunties and uncles and my grandmom. But anyhow, Granny Sarah, as she's called, made this book as a birthday present for my grandmom on her 4th birthday. And the black and white photo you see on the cover here is my grandmom when she turned 4 years old. She was born in 1933, so this would have been 1937. And you can see in the photo, this is the book that I'm now holding. So this was one of her gifts that year. I think the dolly was another gift. And what's cute is that my grandmom knows for a fact, like even if her memories weren't as perfect as they are, she's a sharp lady. She's 88, but still active and working on new projects. She still sews and is just amazing. But she knows for a fact it was her 4th birthday because of the 4 candles on the birthday cake. So yeah, I think it's really cool as a reference to see that this is what the book looked like when it was brand new before the photo was added later. And you can see the binding on the spine of the book. It's come undone now, like these would have wrapped around the edges and would have wrapped around the bottom. So it's no longer perfect, but for an 84-year-old book, that's pretty damn good, I think. So yeah, the cover, my grandmom told me, is wrapped in wallpaper. And I think that is just so cool because junk journal makers, myself included, use wallpaper in our crafts to this day. So that's something, you know, a lot of us tend to have this bubble of reference where we see what's being done in contemporary times and we think we invented this new craft form. But yeah, in the 1930s, people were already using wallpaper scraps to make junk journal covers. And I guess you can't really call it a junk journal. It's more of a scrapbook because it's being filled with pictures. But yeah, so there's my grandmom's family. There she is. And these are her 3 brothers, and that's her mother. So what I think is really cool looking at this book, you see a lot of junk journalers deliberately distress and age papers. Like, we do things like dye brand new papers with coffee and tea, and we'll crumple up the corners of a paper to make it look like it's being worn with age, because there's just something special about holding an object that has been used and loved and that has seen eras go by. So it's really cool to see what actually aged paper looks like the markings, the water damage spots, the wrinkles in the corner. My grandmom thought I was crazy when I looked at this book at her house and commented on how wonderful all the wear and tear spots are. And it's funny, sometimes those of us who are into the aesthetics of junk journals, we have to remember that most people have the goal of maintaining pristine, new-looking, store-bought qualities in their things, and don't understand how we have this passion for aged and worn and distressed stuff. I guess it's kind of like that trend to distress furniture back in the 90s. I remember watching HGTV with my mom and seeing designers take like hammers and chains and bang them against the sides of brand new coffee tables to make them look like they've been aged. And that's similar to what we do with our paper now, isn't it? I thought this was really cool. Queen Elizabeth and her sister, before they were elderly, having grown up in the era, like I was born in 84, so to me, Queen Elizabeth has always been an elderly woman, but it's funny to see back in the 1930s, that's what she looked like in the newspapers. Pretty girls, aren't they? Whatever we may feel about the monarchy. So yeah, it's neat for me to see what things my great-grandmother found worth including in the book. Luckily, time has answered this question. It's definitely not to spank. Although I'm not a parent. You know what? I shouldn't say. This is my favorite picture in the whole book. As a cat lover, I love seeing a little girl with her kitty. And it's neat how she took the time to cut around the shapes of these objects. Yeah. And I love this image. Happy little kids on their way to school. Thought that was cute too. I think that's the only color image in the whole book, other than these little flowers on the first page. These were probably clipped from seed packets. Yeah, those happy kids. And then the last page is once again a photo of my grandmom with her doll. So yeah, it's a small little book. It has an interesting binding. The pages are so neatly worn. And then this one here. This one I absolutely adore because it's so unique. And I'm guessing based on the picture of this lady, it was probably made in the 1940s. Correct me if I'm wrong, those who know more about the evolution of ladies' fashions, but that to me looks like a 1940s hairstyle and dress. And my grandmom told me, like, I asked her why this picture would be significant to put on the book cover, and she said the entire book is made out of the packaging from a pattern. Like, this is what sewing patterns used to come in. And I like how she's put it together just with these little plastic rings, and she's used binder reinforcers, and one of them has torn off, which is so cool. And again, my grandmom thought I was nuts for saying how much I love this partially torn off corner that's been repaired with tape and it's crumbling. I don't know. Let me know how you feel about things like that, but as a junk journal enthusiast, I appreciate the aesthetic of aged and distressed things. So yeah, the first page here shows these pretty samples of crochet. And I should tell you the history of this book, because the whole book is a sampling of crocheted borders that she's sewn right onto the cardboard. The history of this book, one of my grandmom's cousins contacted her and said that she was going through her old things and found this book that my grandmom's mother had given to her mother. And my grandmom told me that these are not made from patterns, that my Granny Sarah, great Granny Sarah, enjoyed making up her own patterns rather than using things that were mass produced. And my grandmom said it's kind of like the way a composer composes a new song. And she said it's like the way I draw abstract drawings. I'm reaching back to get my sketchbook here to show you. Like, this is the way I draw. And this is a sketchbook I'm filling up right now with just various pen and ink drawings. And I don't really start with a pre-planned composition. I just take my paper and take my pen and let whatever happens on the page happen. So my grandmom said that my great-grandmom was like that with picking up a crochet hook and just building on her compositions, letting what happens happen. And so she gave this book of samples to one of her sisters, and my grandmom said that she thinks what it would have been used for is gift giving, that if she were to make a set of napkins or a set of doilies or an embroidered bed sheet, that whoever received this book could tell her, okay, I love the sample on the third page, the second one down, could you put that on the edges of the pillowcases? And it's just such a neat concept. I love going through it. I've always been drawn to samples. You know, one of the coolest childhood memories I have was my mother coming home from school one day. My mom taught elementary school. And so when I was in elementary school, she would bring me the coolest little gifts that she found at teachers' conventions, like educational kids' toys and art supplies and craft supplies. And one day she brought me a book of wallpaper samples, and I've always been a crafter. So I kept it in perfect condition for about, I would guess probably a week or two, and just looked at it every day and thought about what I would do with the different pictures, the different pieces of wallpaper. And then finally I tore some of them out and made little books out of them. And my grandmom, who has always been very crafty, she gave me a sample card from a yarn company that had just like little teeny tiny strips of different colors of yarn. And I remember that year for Christmas, my mom and my grandparents asked me, what do I want for Christmas? And I wanted wallpaper sample books and string samples and paper samples and fabric samples. Like, okay, when you were in school, did your school ever do a fundraiser where you had to sell wrapping paper at Christmas time? And you'd get this little booklet with various like knickknacks in it, like snow globes and Christmas ornaments and strings of lights, and then the back page was a little flip of about 8 or 10 different designs of wrapping paper. And the more you sold, the more or the bigger the prize you would win from the company for selling their stuff. I don't know, this might just be something that happened at St. Mary's School in Lethbridge. I don't know, did this happen where you are too? But I always wanted to keep that book because I loved the flips of different wallpaper samples at the end. And I remember telling my mom, like, I don't even care about the prizes. I don't want a whistle or a yo-yo or whatever they're going to give me for selling their stuff. I just want to keep the sample book. And it was always a disappointment. Like, no, you can't keep the sample book. But anyway, maybe I'm just a nerd about this kind of thing, but I love to keep samples of everything. You may have seen in my other videos that I've been doing a lot of journal crafting using Indian embroidered trim, like beautiful sari ribbons and trims from India. And it's always difficult for me to start using a new supply that I've bought because I find them to be so beautiful that it feels almost like a destruction of something to cut it into pieces. Like it's so funny because you buy pads of paper to use them, and you buy tins of watercolor pens to use the paint, and you buy strands of beads to make jewelry. But there's something, I think it's that feeling of infinite possibilities that you have when you're holding an unused supply that you could make this into anything, that when you actually commit and cut it down and start using it, it's done. Like the thrill of discovering what to do with it goes away the moment you actually use it. And so I've decided as a compromise to force myself to actually use my materials and not turn into a craft supply hoarder, because it's a slippery slope from collecting into hoarding. So I've decided that my compromise for myself is that I'm going to make a sample book like this one that my great granny Sarah made, only instead of sewing in strips of crocheted trims, I'm going to sew in strips of every sari trim and every fabric, like swatches of the fabrics I use in my different journal projects. And that way there will always be a piece of it saved in that pristine, untouched condition. So when it happens, like, it's a big project. It's going to be a big project to make a large book like that. But when I do, I promise to share it with you on this channel and do a flip through. But anyway, yeah, that was it. These are the two amazing antique books that my grandmom showed me. And I hope you enjoyed that little flip through. The next video I do on my channel, I've put this right next to my camera so I can bring it on and show you. The next book I flip through is going to be this massive mermaid inspired sea blue book that I've been working on for the past millennium. I started this, I guess, 5 months ago, and it's been taking a very long time because I'm a firm believer that we should only craft when we're really in the mood for it, so that whatever we make is infused with that energy of inspiration and joy. So I'm not one of those people who starts a project and then gets to the grindstone, nose to the grindstone, works on it until it's done. I'm the type of person who starts a project, sets it aside, does another project, makes a smaller thing, then comes back to the bigger thing, then makes a couple other smaller things. So I've started and completed, I think, 5 smaller books in the time it's taken me to start this one and get to this point. But it is a pride, this one here. I'm very happy with how it's turning out. Spoiler alert, it's filled with these little faux pearls and clamshells, and of course this is the kind of sari trim I was telling you about that I'm saving samples of to keep in my own sort of sample book. But yeah, this is gonna be our next flip through. you'll need to get yourself a cup of coffee or tea when you watch that video. It should be in about a week that it's ready. I'll just put the finishing touches, add the last few sari trim tabs, make sure every page has something special on it, and then we'll look at that one. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for sharing in my fascination for these antique books. Thank you for watching my video. I hope it brought you some inspiration. I've personally ordered a few binder rings inspired by my great granny's book so that I can also make some books that don't have spines or typical binding. I'll just punch some holes and put some reinforcers and put them together like this because I really like it. I love how it sits perfectly flat. That's really good for those of us who do art journaling. But yeah, I hope it's also inspired you, and I hope to see you in my next video. In the meantime, please do check out my Etsy shops. I'll put the links to both of them in the video description. These bracelets I'm wearing are from my Etsy jewelry shop called The Art of Gems. And don't worry, I will carefully pick off all the little cat hairs before I ship them. And in my other Etsy shop, Art of Gems Stationery, I've put together a few packages of these kinds of Indian embroidered sari trims so that if you're crafty and if you keep a junk journal and if you like to put some things on the edges of your book pages as much as I do, there's a pack of 25 of those that seem to be going pretty quickly. I'm impressed that other people share in my aesthetic passions. But yeah, please check those out. I truly appreciate the support in those shops. And let me know what you think of these books. Let me know if you've ever done this kind of spine binding in your own books. And I wish you all the best. Happy Halloween, by the way. That's, I think, the next holiday coming up. All right, enough babbling. See you in the next video. Much love. Bye-bye.